Today I'm going to present my presentation about Factivity, Implication, and Modality. Factivity. I want to show you a sample sentence. These two sentences say opposite things about forgetting, but they are the same in communicating the information that a certain meeting was cancelled. Kiparsky, 1970, first showed that certain predicates, including the verb forget, are factive. A predicate fact has a predicate as one of its arguments. The arguments means complete clause, gerund clause, or abstract noun phrase. And whether affirmative or negative, it presupposes the truth of that predicate. This is the symbol I use for presupposes. Combine two sentences using the symbols I have mentioned in green. Here are other examples of factive predicates. The predicate regret, reason, forget, surprising, and others are factual. Whether affirmative or negative, they present the following predicates as true. Note that factive is not the same as factual. Whether the prediction is correct or not can only be determined by investigating events and situations outside of language. Factive means that the predicate is present linguistically as true. In the example above, the factual predicate is followed by a full clause. Some factive predicates can be followed by a gerund clause or an adverbial noun. And this is the example. This time, unlike all the sentences above, note the following. The predicates of the sentence are believe, decide, likely, assert, hope, probable, and others are non-factive predicates. They have a predicate as one of the arguments, but whether affirmative or negative, they do not assert to the truth of that predicate. One predicate is counteractive. Whether affirmative or negative, it carries with it the suppositions that the following predicate is not true. And I don't wish I owned a villa on the Riviera. That is an example. Any verb can be counteractive when used with the auxiliary verb would have. For example, I would have enjoyed seeing the play. Second, I wouldn't have enjoyed seeing the play. Although there is only one contradictive predicate in English, namely wish, the number of non-factive predicate is large. For example, agree, assume, believe, decide, doubt, dream, feel, fear, hope, imagine, suppose, think, afraid, and sure. Most of us will accept that the following are facts. For example, discover, find out, forget, hear, know, learn, notice, realize, regret, remember, reason, understand, aware, glad, happy, and sorry. The following is also factual but differs from the both groups in one minor syntax issue. They are followed not by clauses alone, but the facts and clauses. Example sentence: I appreciate or don't appreciate the fact that you said exactly what you feel. And the words relate to this, like accept, acknowledge, appreciate, deplore, overlook, tolerate. Some predicates do not presuppose the truth of the preposition occurring as one of their arguments, but carry some implication about the truth or untruth of the preposition. Find interesting variations of implication and be able to recognize various types of implicative predicates. Was first sketched by Cartoonen 1970 and is sometimes called conditional factive. See this sentence. If you hear someone say, "I meant to catch my bus," you will no doubt conclude that speaker did catch the intended bus. Hearing the negative equivalent, "I didn't mean to catch my bus," you conclude that speaker is not catching the bus. And the first sentence is as redundant as "I caught my bus" and "I caught it." And the second sentence is as contradictory as I catch my bus, but I didn't catch it. The verb manage, like some other verbs that are followed by a subtraction clause, has a certain value of implication. Different predicates have different implicative values, and we identify 6 groups of predicates according to what they mean about the truth values of the included clauses. In the first group, which includes manage, if the predicate is affirmative, it implies that the following preposition is true, and if the predicate is negative, there is an implication that the following preposition is false. The symbol below should read implies. This is the example, use implies. Next is modality. In introduction, talk about what may or may not to be true, what should be and what should not be, what certain individuals are capable of doing and what is impossible for them, what application we should or should not do. 2 examples of modality. It's your duty to visit your ailing parents. You ought to visit your ailing parents. These sentences are almost paraphrased. Both have the preposition "you visit ailing parent" and they make an equivalent statement about that preposition. 2 more examples of modality. Jessica is possibly at home now, and Jessica may be at a home now. Here too, they are almost synonymous sentences containing the same thing preposition and make the equivalent statement about preposition. From the 2 examples, first example regarding application and the second example are about the possibilities. In 2 examples of modality, the application is centered on the subject, you. Sentence tell what you need to do. But in 2 more examples of modality are probably not subject-centered. In Jessica, that goes for the whole preposition. Jessica is at home now. So we recognize another difference in modality. It may be centered on some entity or entities, usually denoted by the subject of the sentence, or sentence centered on the prepositions contained in the sentence. Modalities can be expressed in nouns such as duty, obligation, probably, likelihood, in adjective like necessary, possibly, likely, in adverbs such as obviously, probably, perhaps. But to describe how modalities are expressed in English, we need to concentrate on modal verbs. Verbs like ought and may. Semantically, the following are modal verbs. like can, could, may, might, will, would, must, should, ought, need, have to, and have got to. What does must mean? This has two meanings, the first of which we can illustrate with two small dialogues. Suppose a young athlete is planning to enter an important and difficult race. We say to him, if you expect to win, you must train very hard. And he replies, I will. Suppose, on the other hand, this athlete show us the trophies and medals he won in previous race. We might say, if you have won so many races, you must train very hard. And the response might be I do. In the first example, the verb must be application, the application of the person appointed by you, and the statement is perspective about an unfinished action as indicated by the answer I will. The second dialogue has to reveal the possibilities, possibly not subject-centered. We're not talking about a possible you, but about the fact that your training is very hard, and the statement is not perspective. It takes into account current phenomena, trophies, and medals, and look back to take them into account. And what is an application? It is a need centered on a few people or people. The words you must train very hard in the first dialogue can be paraphrased. It is necessary for you to train very hard. And what is probability? It is also necessity, the need for the truth or factuality of some proposition or propositions. The words you must train very hard in the second dialogue can be paraphrased as it is inevitably the case that you train very hard. First dialogue must express a deontic modality. The individuals need to act or not to act in a certain way. And the second dialogue must express the epistemic modality, the possibility or impossibility of the particular proposition. Next, obligation is expressed in several English modal verbs. These verbs express different levels of obligation, but different English speakers may disagree on their relative rankings. For this writer, must as in first sentence of the example is the strongest statement of obligation and is the rather formal. Have and have got are more colloquial and not as strong as must. Others follow in order. Needs is almost as strong as have. Ought express a liability that is weaker but still stronger than should. Other English speakers may also rank differently. And this section, there is a big difference between first sentence of this example and the rest. It first says that we are obligated not to stay. The negative is attached to the embedded preposition. Not staying is our obligation. To express an obligation that exists in the past must be a regular modal verb. These are some examples. Some speakers said had go to and hadn't go to, then had to and didn't have to, respectively. Must is not used for the past application except perhaps in the report speech, like the boss told us we must complete the documents before 5 o'clock. Probability can be represented on a scale like this. In English, the degree of probability can express only by the terms used here, like highly, very, fairly, rather, slightly, and many more. Degrees of probability are also expressed with modal verbs. Subject-centered possibilities are expressed with modal verbs can and may. For example, Edward can lift 250 pounds, and Sally can speak 4 languages. And third, you may or can leave the room. To describe probabilities and probability at some point in the past, we can say Stanley might could have been busy, or Stanley must have been busy. To express personal potential in the past could be used like when I was younger, I could run a mile in 4 minutes, but I couldn't do better than that. The last modal verbs to discuss are will and would, which are not always modal verbs. For example, this summer is hot and next summer will be hot too. The second clause in this sentence gives the preposition next the summer will be hot 100% probability, but since it is not yet a fact, as the first clause presumes, it is a prediction. When will is used in general statements such as sentence first and sentence 2, it denotes a high probability that the sentence is almost equivalent to a statement of fact without the modality being expressed. And the past equivalent is would. For example, she would spend hours at the piano every day. However, this use of will or would is better described as a kind of aspect rather than kind of modality. And finally, summary. A predicate that has a clause and embedded preposition as one of its arguments may be factive, counterfactive, or non-factive. They imply the truth or not truth of what is stated in the embedded sentence. And modality has to do with two kinds of necessity: obligation or possibility, probability. Modality may be expressed in various ways, but our presentation has concentrated on the modal verbs of English. Obligation is prospective, while possibility may involve looking backward or forward in time. The set of modal verbs express different degrees of obligation and different degrees of possibility or probability. Occurrence of not with modal verbs may negate the modal verb itself or the content of the following prepositions.